"You're fired," he said with a grin, like he was handing me a damn party balloon. Standing there in the middle of the quarterly all-hands, coffee in one hand, smugness in the other, our new golden retriever of a COO, Brent, said it loud enough for the unpaid intern in the break room to hear. "We appreciate everything Monica's done, but in light of her automation project, her role is, well, no longer necessary." Translation: I built the machine that made me obsolete, and this overcaffeinated LinkedIn lizard thought it'd be poetic to boot me right after I made his job idiot-proof. The room froze. My name still echoed off the conference call mics. A few folks glanced at their shoes. A junior dev actually mouthed with the F before HR shot him the corporate death stare. 12 years. No warning. Not even a courtesy Slack message. Just a smile, a layoff, and a room full of frozen faces pretending their Wi-Fi cut out. I didn't cry. That part comes later in motels and microwave dinners. Instead, I nodded once, slow and surgical. Picked up my coat like it was armor, walked out without looking back. Brent kept talking after I left. Of course he did. Men like that think the sound of their own voice is a TED talk for toddlers. And hey, if you've made it this far, don't be like the 97% of folks who ghost watch these stories without subscribing. Seriously, it helps more than Brent's team building budget. Drop a like too. It fuels the spite that keeps our whole petty little operation running. Anyway, out in the parking lot, my hands were shaking like a leaf in a microwave. The cold wind cut straight through my cardigan. My ID badge still clipped to my hip like a joke. I looked up at the office windows. Couldn't tell which ones were the server room anymore. I'd helped migrate most of it to the cloud. I didn't even know which AWS region we were using. But I did. I knew every buried script, every hidden cron job, every duct-taped webhook I jury-rigged at 2 a.m. during a Christmas outage. I was the skeleton key. What they owned were assets. What I carried out that door was leverage. See, while Brent played chess with paper pieces, I'd spent a decade writing the rules of the game. And that morning, he tried to delete the queen. Problem was, I had admin privileges and no intention of logging out. The motel smelled like desperation and lemon-scented bleach. You know the type, where the pillows crunch and the ice bucket's more symbolic than functional. Room 108, right next to the vending machine that made noises like it was summoning the dead. I tossed my overnight bag on the bed, kicked off my shoes, sat cross-legged like some weary monk staring into the glow of a $279 Chromebook. First stop, the burger I grabbed from the drive-thru down the road. Bun falling apart, mystery sauce bleeding into the wrapper like regret. It tasted like victory, or maybe just salt and vengeance. Either way, I needed fuel. I popped open the laptop. Fans spun up like they sensed what was coming. My fingers hovered over the keys for a second longer than they should have. Habit, fear, a cocktail of both maybe. But once I started typing, the muscle memory took over. Root folders, Git lab repos, Slackbot integrations. Oh look, there's the payroll sync I patched myself when Brent forgot to renew the API license last quarter. That was a fun Friday night. Then I checked the admin dashboards. That's when the grins started to crack through. They hadn't changed a damn thing. Email services? Still under my name. The domain registrar? Mine. Billing contact for the help desk platform? Still Monica.Hale at an address Brent thought he buried in a file labeled former. Even the two-factor codes were routed to my backup number, the one I gave HR back in 2015 after a tornado knocked out power for 3 counties, and I had to manually fail over the backup systems from a Waffle House parking lot. Idiots. Not even malicious, just lazy. Too busy slapping together slide decks to notice that the digital skeleton of the company was still duct-taped to my credentials. I started making backups. Quietly, patiently. No fireworks. Just downloading config files, exporting logs, and snapshotting the things only I would know how to rebuild. Hell, half of it was undocumented, because I was the documentation. Can't train a junior dev to fix a system you built in a caffeine-fueled panic at 3 a.m. during a ransomware scare 3 years ago. The motel Wi-Fi stuttered like it was scared of what I was doing. Every few minutes I'd hear a couple fighting through the wall, something about a cousin and a boat. I tuned it out, because this was the part where I stopped being disposable. By the time the burger wrapper hit the trash can, I'd already resecured 3 SSH tunnels, set 1 expired token, and set up a quiet watcher script, nothing fancy, just a heartbeat monitor that would tell me when their system sneezed. Not to crash anything. Not yet, just to listen, like a ghost watching her own funeral. The first crack wasn't a boom, it was a whisper. One of the old jobs I'd set up, a silent little script named Auto Client Dispatch Pie, failed to fire at 6 a.m. sharp, like it had every single weekday for the past 7 years. That script didn't do much. Just compiled daily analytics into neat PDFs and sent them off to clients who liked colorful pie charts and words like synergy. A routine blip to anyone else. To me, it was a scalpel. I deleted the deprecated API token it needed to authenticate with the reporting server. Not the current one, not the backup. The one, old credential hidden deep in a legacy environment file nobody bothered to clean. I knew exactly what would happen. The system would report a generic 403 error, the log would point to the wrong microservice, and someone fresh out of a boot camp would spend 2 days blaming OAuth, while Brent screamed into a Bluetooth headset about critical deliverables. I sipped motel coffee, so bitter it could exfoliate your soul, and waited. By 9:42 a.m., I got the first ping from Melissa in marketing. Melisum at CompanyCom. Hey, any idea why Acorn Mutual didn't get their daily reports? Their rep just called asking if something changed on our end. I didn't reply, obviously. By noon, 2 more pings. One from Jordan in DevOps, another from a panicked account manager with 3 question marks and a CC to the COO. By 3 p.m., full-on Slack thread titled #Urgent Acorn Reports had spun up. Theories flew like gnats. Maybe the build pipeline failed. Maybe cron wasn't triggering. Maybe someone updated the time zone settings on the server. Wrong, all of them. But they'd never checked the right place. That token was buried in a legacy. End file only I knew existed, and I changed its timestamp to look untouched. Like leaving a booby trap in Grandma's attic. Meanwhile, I just watched them spin their wheels, reboot Jenkins twice, reauthorize a perfectly good OAuth client, and my personal favorite, blame the client's firewall. Brent even posted a reminder about the importance of cross-functional collaboration. I laughed so hard I nearly choked on a stale motel biscuit. See, this wasn't about burning it all down. Not yet. This was about showing them the edge, letting them peer over it. Sweaty palms gripping a broken railing while the wind whispered, "She built this, and she's still watching." The satisfaction wasn't loud. It was cold, clean, like rinsing blood off tile and realizing you didn't even get a drop on your shirt. They'd recover. Eventually. But they'd never forget this stumble. Because somewhere, deep in the back of their minds, a question was starting to form. What else did she build that we don't understand? I had all the time in the world to let that question rot. My phone buzzed at 11:17 p.m., a screenshot from Aaron in compliance. Just the Jenkins log timestamp and a Slack message thread full of digital blood. Did you change the API key? No hi, no pleasantries. Just that one question like a whisper in a horror movie. 3 more pings followed in the next hour. One from Lucas in engineering, "Hey, if you're still up, any chance you remember where the old metrics handler logs get archived?" And one from Tanya in HR of all people, "I just want to say, I always thought what they did was dirty. Hope you're okay." Oh, I was better than okay. I was watching chaos bloom from a Motel 6 like it was an art installation. Turns out, the Acorn Mutual issue triggered a panic cascade. Some baby-faced junior dev named Cody, Brody, or whatever frat soup name HR's been pulling from LinkedIn lately, tried to hot patch the scheduler. Big mistake. He rerouted the job through a test server I decommissioned last fiscal year, which still used an untagged beta version of our reporting tool. Within 20 minutes, he'd inadvertently overwritten 4 config files and deleted the weekly KPI summary for our highest-paying client. Oops. Meanwhile, the coup, Brent, I've got it handled Foster, was foaming at the mouth, spitting theories like sunflower seeds. I know this because someone kindly leaked his all-hands rant to me. Apparently, he blamed residual sabotage and floated the idea that I'd planted malware before leaving. Classic. I'd expect nothing less from a man who once asked if JSON was some kind of new AI. But here's the fun part. They still couldn't prove anything, because there was nothing to prove. No foul play, no breach, no red flags on their firewall. Everything was technically running, just wrong enough to rattle them, like flickering lights in a haunted house. Every glitch, every broken link, every malfunction had a perfectly logical explanation. Too bad none of them were true. I'd begun tweaking the old scripts I still had access to. Not sabotage, just cosmetic chaos. I changed the naming conventions on internal reports. Dashboards started pulling fields like Client Insight Q2 instead of Client Insight Final. I reintroduced a time zone bug we fixed back in 19. Nothing catastrophic, just enough to make timestamps look like they were jumping an hour ahead, randomly. I even added a ghost alert in the logging tool. It triggered an error code that didn't actually exist. Engineers thought it was a corrupted module. I called it my ghost bug. Watching them hunt, it was like watching toddlers chase a laser pointer. Every Slack message they sent each other was a love letter to my ego. Every broken fix was a bouquet of roses dipped in gasoline. And behind it all, Brent seethed, powerless, clueless, desperate to keep the illusion of control. He didn't know it yet, but the roots of his empire were rotting, one unexplainable glitch at a time. Bitterness? That was gone. This was amusement. The sick, clean kind you feel when the clown slips on his own pie and the whole circus catches fire. Some people drink wine when they need to think. I drink data. It was past midnight, the motel AC sputtering like it was fighting for its life, and I was cross-legged on the stiff bed, scrolling through old email archives I'd quietly mirrored during my final weeks. Not out of paranoia, just habit. I never trusted the way Brent talked about streamlining, and like him use words like that the way mobsters use piano wire. Tidy, silent, efficient. That's when I found it, the smoking gun I didn't know I was carrying. Subject line: action required Q3 security audit pre-checklist sent from me, dated 4 days before my termination. I opened the attached spreadsheet, and there it was. A full audit trail scheduled for the following month, with my initials on every flagged item. Outdated credential management, complete MFA rollouts, open S3 buckets from a project they'd shelved and forgotten. I'd been quietly prepping them for an internal compliance audit, knowing damn well we weren't ready, and planning to help them fix it before the auditors came knocking. And what did Brent do? He fired the only person who knew about the holes, 4 weeks before the audit was set to begin. I leaned back, cracked my knuckles, and let that wash over me. This wasn't just a grudge anymore. This wasn't some salty ex-employee feeding ghosts into the machine. This was obstruction. And I had the receipts. I started building the file. Clean, precise, damning. I gathered every email where I'd warned leadership about security gaps. Every thread where Brent brushed them off with "we'll tackle it post-launch," or "let's not bog the board down with technical anxiety." I compiled logs of system changes I made to cover for their laziness. Even pulled a screenshot from the day I gave him direct access to the risk matrix, and he replied with a thumbs-up emoji. I labeled the folder insurance. Then I documented my own termination. Slack logs, calendar events, timestamped messages from HR. The fact that I was removed from the system the same day I was scheduled to finalize the audit draft. I wrote it like a lawyer would, neutral tone, linear narrative, evidence-heavy, because now I wasn't just protecting myself. I was loading the chamber. They'd spun a story. Monica automated herself out of relevance. Neat, digestible. But the truth was uglier. They cut the only person standing between their company and a federal fine. And if anyone came sniffing after me, I wanted them to find breadcrumbs soaked in gasoline. I closed the lid of the laptop and let the silence stretch. Even the vending machine had gone still. In that moment, I didn't feel angry or hurt or vindictive. I felt ready. There's a point where revenge stops being personal and becomes procedural. I had just crossed it. Brent stood at that podium like a man who thought he'd just pissed excellence. The backdrop was a cheap vinyl banner that read Q4 Rebuild, stronger together in a font that screamed mid-tier inspirational PowerPoint, beamed like a dad who just finished assembling an IKEA bookshelf with leftover screws and no instructions. "We've overcome some unexpected hiccups," he said to the board and clients on the live stream. "But thanks to our resilient team and agile response, we're stronger than ever." Agile. That was rich. In the corner of the screen, I could see Melissa from marketing blinking like she was being held hostage off camera. She knew, at least part of her did. Did Jordan from DevOps. His jaw clenched every time Brent said resolved. Because the truth was, they hadn't fixed a damn thing. They just papered over the fire alarm. The bugs stopped surfacing because the scripts I wrote had error handling designed to fail silently if certain dependencies weren't met. And one of those dependencies, a kill switch package linked to a private Git repo that no longer existed. I had deleted it last week, wiped it, gone. See, final move I made before walking out wasn't explosive. It was surgical. A single line dependency inside a core reporting module, one line that pulled a lightweight JSON config from a repo hosted under an innocuous personal subdomain I owned. Without that file, the module still ran, but parsed junk. Outdated data, broken metrics, nonsense graphs. Enough to make everything look right until someone actually used it. And Brent built the whole demo around that module. As I watched the live stream from my motel room, the clock ticking like a countdown, I stirred powdered creamer into gas station coffee and waited. He clicked over to the demo dashboard, proud as a rooster. Now, let's take a look at our real-time client insights engine, rebuilt, refined, and better than ever. One click. Pause. The graphs loaded, except they didn't. Color palette looked like it had been vomited by a confused jellyfish. Percentages didn't add up. A client labeled Acorn Mutual had a negative engagement score of minus 14,700% and a pie chart shaped like a crescent moon. The room on screen fell silent. Brent chuckled, tapping the trackpad. That's clearly a rendering issue. Let me just refresh here. He clicked again. The dashboard crashed, reloaded. This time it displayed a dashboard titled, Demo Staging Final 2 Copy OLD Do Not Use. I almost choked on my coffee. Board members stared like someone had just farted during the national anthem. One client on the call disconnected mid-presentation. Another's mic picked up a quiet, "What the hell is this?" Melissa turned pale, and me? I just sat back, crossed my arms, and let the wave roll in. Not smiling, not laughing, just simmering, kind of quiet rage that doesn't boil anymore because it already scorched everything. This was the false victory, the high before the fall. Brent thought he'd won, tied up the mess in a bow. He didn't realize I had quietly sewn a string of Christmas lights into the foundation, and now they were blinking SOS, in front of every investor and client with an internet connection. He'd mocked me for building systems too complex, said the next gen would simplify. Turns out, it was the simplifier. Now let's see him untangle the knot I left behind. Brent's face turned the color of an undercooked pork chop. He was mid-sentence. This is the future of integrated analytics, when the product dashboard froze, blinked twice, then collapsed into a wall of red error messages. A fat yellow triangle popped up center screen with the words, Invalid data source, object config master not found. Silence, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times during testing. The dull thunk of a browser crash. The live stream didn't cut. Oh no. It stayed on Brent's panicked eyes and awkward neck sweat while the board stared, mouths partially open, trying to figure out if this was some performance art about digital disruption. Then came the dominoes. Client rep from Crown Financial unmuted herself with a clipped, "We'll need to reevaluate our partnership." Effective immediately. Other firm's logo quietly vanished from the shared screen. Someone was screen sharing off a dashboard that just started bleeding clients in real time. Brent stammered, "If everyone could just give us a moment. We've had a caching issue with one of the staging servers. Jordan. He turned to the VP of engineering like a drowning man calling out for a life jacket made of apologies. Jordan looked like he wanted to sink through the floor. "This isn't staging. This is prod." One of my old coworkers, Danielle from Backend, still hanging on out of obligation or Stockholm Syndrome, locked eyes with the camera, and without saying a word mouthed, "She did this." Goddamn right I did, not out of pettiness, not out of vengeance, but because Brent turned systems meant to serve into theater props. And you don't cut the woman who designed the power grid and expect to run the lights. Back in my motel room, I closed the stream, stood up, stretched. The coffee had gone cold. My joints popped like bubble wrap. I felt not proud, not giddy, clean, like I'd finally dug the last shovel of dirt off a buried landmine and walked away before anyone stepped on it. I turned back to the screen and opened the secure legal portal I'd created a few nights prior. Two-factor authentication. Encrypted upload. Metadata scrubbed clean. Side, a PDF of the audit schedule Brent tried to kill by firing me. Email chains showing he ignored security warnings. Timestamped Git logs tying his changes to known bugs. Screenshots of him approving the rollback of multi-factor authentication to reduce login friction. And the piece de resistance. A voice memo I'd accidentally recorded on my phone the day before my termination, where Brent said, laughing, "We'll just spin it as optimization. She made herself obsolete, saves me the severance." I uploaded it all, labeled the folder compliance breach, Hail V, Parallax Tech. I didn't click send, not yet, but it was there now, anchored, airtight, permanent. Their system was collapsing in public. I was just making sure the autopsy read honest. 3 days later, landed in my inbox like a soggy ceasefire flag. Cease and desist, alleged interference with company infrastructure, The email was from some pinstripe associate at a white shoe law firm with a name like Wexler and Thorne. Paragraph after paragraph of corporate chest thumping. Cease all unauthorized access. Return proprietary materials. We are prepared to pursue civil action. I read it once, then again, just to savor the sound of their panic, dressed up in legalese. Still thought this was about revenge, about me being bitter or emotional. They didn't realize I was past all that. I wasn't angry anymore. I was surgical. I opened a fresh doc, started crafting my response like I was assembling a bomb in a jewelry box. To whom it may concern, attached please find documentation relevant to the compliance breach initiated under COO Brent Foster's direction, including internal emails referencing postponed audits, Slack logs verifying my termination preceded a planned compliance review, dependency logs showing critical systems reliant on my personal accounts post-termination, an audio recording in which Mr. Foster characterizes my dismissal as a means of avoiding severance and audit oversight. Please be advised, should your office pursue legal action, I am prepared to submit these materials to the SEC and relevant industry compliance bodies. Additionally, I have preserved evidence suggesting deliberate obstruction of internal audits and knowingly false statements made to clients during a product failure. In lieu of escalation, I will accept a formal written statement clearing my employment record, a public retraction of wrongdoing, and the agreed severance bonus outlined in my 2018 contract, adjusted for inflation. Kind regards, Monica Hale. I CC'd their in-house legal team, BCC'd a former coworker with a conscience, and clicked send. Silence for 48 hours. Then, a reply from the same partner. Let's find a mutually agreeable resolution. Translation, we don't want this smoke. By the end of the week, the money hit my account, a tidy bonus quietly labeled consulting closure. No fireworks, no court dates. Just the sweet, antiseptic efficiency of corporate damage control. They wiped the black mark from my file, reclassified my exit as a strategic restructure, and issued a bland, backdated HR memo thanking me for 12 years of indispensable innovation. No apology. But in their world, that memo was the apology. A quiet kneel behind closed doors. Brent, still employed, for now. But the board had eyes now, questions, whispers, and me. I wasn't shaking anymore. Was sharpening. The elevator doors slid open with a soft ding, and there it was, my new battlefield. Sleek floors, floor-to-ceiling glass, and the faint smell of ambition baked into the carpet. Parallax's biggest rival, Titan Solutions. I'd reached out weeks ago, right after the firing, when the sting still throbbed like an exposed nerve. They replied in 48 hours, made an offer in 72. Your CTO called me the kind of dangerous we need on our side. Damn right. I walked through the glass doors that Monday morning in a blazer that still smelled like fresh packaging and victory. Reception smiled, offered me coffee with oat milk, not the burned motor oil I'd been chugging at the motel. My badge was already printed, laptop pre-configured, onboarding packet stacked neatly on my desk. It felt foreign. I'd stepped into a version of reality where my brain actually mattered. By noon, I was settled in. VPN set up, password vault synced. Then my new manager strolled over, tablet in hand, and said 6 words that tasted sweeter than revenge ever could. Hey, we've got a client audit. I nodded, half listening. New account, Parallax Technologies. My hand froze halfway to the keyboard. I looked up, made sure I heard her right. She tapped the screen, hold up the project brief. They're in damage control mode, tons of infrastructure issues, compliance flags all over the place. Brent Foster's still heading ops on their side, so yeah, should be fun. I didn't laugh. I didn't blink. I just reached for the file, opened the audit outline, and whispered to myself, oh, this'll be fun. Because now, I didn't have to sneak in through the cracks. I was walking through the front door, clipboard in hand, receipts ready, wearing their competitor's logo like a scalpel. Everything they'd hidden, every lazy patch job, every shortcut and lie wrapped in jargon, I'd find it, document it, file it, and this time they'd pay me to. As I connected to the audit server, something flickered in the corner of my screen, Wi-Fi networks. Parallax Internal popped up, connected automatically. They never changed the password. Of course they didn't. I leaned back in the chair, arms behind my head, city skyline gleaming outside the window. Let the audit begin. I think what hits hardest here isn't just the revenge, it's how calm and calculated it was. Monica didn't scream, didn't beg. She documented, waited, and struck with precision. There's a quiet kind of power in knowing your worth and letting them choke on the consequences of underestimating you. You're the real stars of the corporate jungle. Thanks for watching. Hit subscribe, or I'll flick the switch on your old cubicle memories.